All right, guys, welcome back. Chapter 15, Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. This one is entitled Nice Bass. You heard that right. I said bass. B-A-S-S. Here we go. Sometimes people just need to get away from their ordinary life to escape and recuperate. Personally, I prefer to do that by locking myself in my bedroom with a bottle of rum, several books, and lots of questionable British TV. But most people prefer to leave home and go to a beach or something. Probably because most people don't end up on vacations where small gangs attempt to break into their hotel rooms at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Victor goes to Japan every year because he studies Japanese stuff. I'd be more descriptive, but I tend to just blank out even more than usual when he starts talking in other languages. Regardless, he eventually decided I needed to go with him at least once, even though I really hate traveling. I finally said okay, but only if Mom could watch our daughter because I didn't trust anyone else to stay with her. Haley was 7 at the time, and that strange combination of confidently independent and dangerously stupid that really only comes with young children and drunks. So I was hesitant to leave her. But I know my mom was very responsible and would counter any instability caused by my entertainingly insane father, who gave me a giant hug when I came in to drop off Haley. He sat down at the kitchen table and went back to casually inspecting the new order of glass eyeballs that had just arrived. He assured me that my worry about leaving Haley was normal but unfounded, and the vacations are a way to keep people healthy and sane. Like, remember when I brought those ringtails in a coffee can on vacation with us, he asked. Strangely, I did not. Why would you bring a bunch of ringtails on vacation? I asked. My father seemed slightly offended and assured me that he'd never bring a bunch of ringtails on vacation and that it was just 2 because who brings a bunch of ringtails on vacation? A better question might be who brings any ringtails on vacation? But I realized I already knew the answer. Well, they couldn't be trusted home alone, my father continued. The last time I did that, they broke into the filing cabinets and made nests out of our taxes. Why don't I remember any of this? I asked, and my mom casually explained I wasn't with them on that trip. So you took a bunch of lemurs on vacation instead of me? My mother looked at me like I was overreacting again. Well, it wasn't either or situation. And ringtails aren't lemurs, my dad said, seemingly vaguely disappointed that he was even having to explain this. They're more like small raccoons, like if a raccoon and a squirrel had a baby. It was informative, but it wasn't making it any easier to understand why anyone would choose to take a vacation with wild animals and not me. It certainly wasn't my idea to take them on a trip, my mom explained with a mild glare at my dad. They were orphaned, and your father was nursing them back to health until they were old enough to be let go. I didn't even know they were in the car with us until I saw the giant coffee can in the back seat. They lived in a coffee can, said my father. They needed a vacation. That was hard to argue with, mostly because it was insane. It did, however, make me hesitate for a moment before leaving Haley. But I figured that my sister and I and the ringtails had survived so the odds were in her favor. Plus, Haley loved strange and unexpected madness at my parents' home. This year, the year before, she'd spent a week with her cousins learning noodling at my parents' house. For those of you who don't know what noodling is, you probably lived a very sheltered life, and you probably also don't keep baby ringtails in a coffee can. Noodling, aka hillbilly hand fishing, is when you catch a catfish, but instead of using a fishing pole, you just shove your hands into an underwater hole that you're hoping you might have fish in them rather than crocodile, snakes, or bitey turtles. It's how people fish when they've run completely out of bait, dynamite, and any other common sense whatsoever. There are stories of people being dragged to their death by giant catfish, which is really a shitty way to die. It's like being dragged to your death by mermaids, except instead of mermaids, it's a fish that tastes like mud. My dad was smart enough to realize that teaching his grandkids to shove their hands in murky lake holes would be something my sister and I would find questionable, so he just brought home a bucket full of live catfish, dumped them inside the backyard canoe, and filled the boat up with water instead. It's sort of the exact opposite of how boats were supposed to work, but it was safe for a way of the grandkids to practice catching Winston McFishface over and over. Technically, there were several fish there, but all catfish sort of look the same, so we just named them all Winston McFishface. It's weird, but that's what my parents have instead of a trampoline. There's a picture here, my friends. I will flash that across the screen. Plus, the kids were happy, and my dad assured to me that all the Winston McFishfaces were eventually returned to the wild, which I suspect is code for we ate them. And I suppose that's all that matters. And that's what I tried to remind myself of when we were in Japan, but I still spent most of the time worrying about Haley. The only time I finally stopped worrying was one day when we took the bullet train to Kyoto. I believe that's how you say it, Kyoto. After severe jet lag plus a lack of sleep, we finally fell into our hotel bed. I was so exhausted I didn't even get undressed, but Victor managed to take at least his shirt off and his jeans before falling fast asleep. A few hours later, Victor heard a noise and shook me, whispering, "I think someone's breaking into our room." I muttered, "Fine, just tell them to keep the lights off," and turned over and went back to sleep as Victor groggingly dragged himself out of bed to see that our door was slightly open. Sorry, I lost my place, friends. The door was slightly open. A pair of bolt cutters were being slid in to cut the top of the metal latch, which is the only thing keeping the intruders out. Victor is not someone to mess with, even when he's in a cheerful mood, but waking up grumpy middle of the night Victor up with a noisy robbery is like disturbing a bunch of hibernating bears so you can shoot Roman candles at their cubs while wearing Lady Gaga's meat dress. Victor watched as the bolt cutter slid back through the door, and he said, "Oh, hell no," and grabbed the bolt cutters and pulled hard. The person holding the bolt cutters was caught off guard and slammed into the other side of the door with a dull thud. Then Victor threw open the door and yelled, "What in the shit is going on out here?" while angrily waving the bolt cutters at our skittish Asian people who gasped in horror and ran away down the hall as if they were being chased by Godzilla. It was possible they were just really bad burglars, or maybe they were surprised to see large, disheveled disheveled? I'm not sure of that word. Disheveled? American man wearing only socks and a pair of novelty boxer shorts with a big fish across the rear that read, "Nice bass," who was waving bolt cutters at them semi-menacingly. I would pay real money for the surveillance tape that is probably very popular on whatever Japanese version of America's Funniest Home Videos this is. The possible burglars disappeared down the stairwell, so Victor walked back inside, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and fell right back to sleep. He claims he told me a small gang was breaking in, and apparently I said he was hallucinating ninjas. And I guess that doesn't make a lot of sense because ninjas probably would have been much more subtle. But it's not like all ninjas are automatically great at their job. Someone has to be the worst ninja in the class. That's just basic math. The next morning I rolled over and said, "God, you were so out of it last night you thought people were breaking into our room." And then I laughed until Victor pointed at the bolt cutters on the floor, the half-cut lock, and the letter that had been slid under our door. The letter explained that the hotel manager wanted to talk to us as soon as possible about the incident that occurred last night. We assumed that we were going to be arrested, but apparently The terrible ninjas who'd broken into our room were hotel staff who had been convinced to pull the bolt cutters after an angry guest insisted that he'd been locked out of his room. Turns out he had the wrong floor, and his wife were two of the frightened people that Victor chased down the hall in his underwear while swinging bolt cutters at them. The manager was very apologetic with the whole misunderstanding and moved us to a larger room without a cut lock and a toilet that was so complicated I couldn't even use it. I considered asking room service just to bring up a bucket. Honestly, toilets in Japan are intimidating as hell, and I suspect will all be replaced by Japanese toilets in the future because they can do pretty much anything you can do, but better. Like one of the features of the fancy Japanese toilet is that the seat is warm for you, which seems like it would be nice, but it's just unsettling. It's as if someone else had just come off the toilet, but no one is there but you. It's like ghost is haunting your toilet. No one wants that. It's like the opposite of those little strips that say sanitize for your protection that you have to break before you use them on a motel toilet. Plus, there's all sorts of other buttons and levers, pulleys, and I'm pretty sure one of them launches nuclear bombs or calls the Pentagon. Here's a picture of just a few of the buttons on a Japanese toilet. I'll flash that picture across the screen. I'm not entirely sure what these are all for, but I think the top one that looks like a stick figure is to notify people that you found the Blair Witch. And I think the next one means poop won't go down. Use your foot. I assume the orange button on the far left is for starting a war. And there are two for washing your boobs for some reason. And then about levitating on a fountain. And I think the last one is for ordering bacon. Frankly, I was too afraid to try all of the buttons because just sitting on it triggering something that made me break out into a song. It was unsettling, like a pooping lullaby. Frankly, I think we've gone too far if you need someone to sing you to the toilet. In fact, I think the toilets were scarier than the whole rest of the trip, including our room being broken into by non-ninjas. I was feeling bewildered about the whole thing. I called my mom and let her listen to the toilet sing and also find out how Haley was doing. When I talked to Haley on the phone, she assured me she was having an absolutely brilliant time and had spent the afternoon wrapping rubber bands around Papa's birds and then throwing them into the air. Then she hung up because she was in short attention span and thought she saw a cloud that looked like someone she knew. The mind of a child. I called back later to ask my mom if Haley was strapping poultry together in bird clumps and just chucking them in the air like inefficient boomerangs. But Mom dismissed the idea and thought it was more likely that Haley and my dad were clipping messages to carrier pigeons my dad was training and then letting them go. Or possibly she was really fucking up the family chickens. Hard to tell with 7-year-olds. Also, hard to tell with my family. Regardless, I suspected that Haley was having a better time than I was. That's when I decided that from now on, I'd stick to vacations that didn't have intimidating toilets and bad ninjas in them. Staycations where I can actually relax and recuperate in my warm bed full of books and cats, and which don't require me to take vacation time to recover from my vacation. My mom said I would probably include in no ringtails coffee cans in my new standards. She had a point, a weird one, but obviously needed to be made. Now on the back here, the last page, there is an interesting side note. My father is constantly trading, nursing, and releasing animals into the wild. So the limpy bobcat he had last week is usually a rescued peacock the next week and will be replaced with a 3-legged iguana the next time you visit. However, it's been years and he still has dozens of carrier pigeons who wiggle out of their enclosure and sit on the roof, staring pointedly at you, waiting to be fed. I was a little impressed with my dad's dedication, but then I realized that you probably can't get rid of homing pigeons. They just keep coming back. It's like the horror movie with birds, which actually exists now that I think about it. It was probably written by someone who got tired of having homing pigeons. If you could sell them, it'd automatically be a pretty great pyramid scheme, but with the pigeons instead of money. Except no one wants pigeons. Basically, it's like having a child who never leaves home and shits everywhere, and then you're all, go be free. And they're like, nah, we're fine here, thanks. Where's the food? Need me to pass a note? My dad loves them, though, and keeps tying notes to their legs. Have you never heard of email? I asked him. It's very fast, and there's so much less bird flu and feces involved. Usually, but he just smiled and went back to mending the doggy door he'd made for the birds. God knows who he is sending Bird Delivers letter to. He uses birds to pass notes. Is it Harry Potter? Who uses birds to pass notes? Is it Harry Potter? Sorry, guys. Because that's all I can think of. I hardly even respond to my emails. I don't even have to wrestle a bird and tie a note around his foot in order to do it. Victor pointed out that Daddy might be sending bird notes to me, and that's just great because now I'm going to be staring down every bird I see if they have a letter for me, and that makes me look even crazier than normal. Plus, the letters will likely be chain letters telling me I have to send off 6 of my own pigeons with message about Jesus, or else I'll be cursed with, I don't know, something worse than having to strap letters to 6 birds. Probably. Thanks a lot, Daddy. Expect to get a lot of homing pigeons back just to have unsubscribe written on them with a Sharpie. That is the end of chapter 15, my friends. Sorry, I kind of struggled through that a little bit. A little bit longer of a chapter. But I hope you enjoyed that one. That was kind of a little weird, but a little humorous and entertaining. But that one, like I said, was entitled Nice Bass. We are on to chapter 16 next. I hope you guys stay tuned. Coming soon. Chapter 16 is entitled, It's Hard to Tell Which of Us is Mentally Ill. So the new year is coming up. And I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. This will be the last reading of 2023. The next reading will take place in 2024, obviously. I hope everybody has a safe and happy New Year. And drink responsible. If you can't drink responsible and it's your year to go out and really have some fun, please get a designated driver, call a taxi. I know certain towns have free rides and Ubers and Lyft drivers and stuff like that. So please call somebody. Please stay safe. And just be smart about the whole thing. But above all, enjoy yourself and have some fun. And I will talk to you guys next year. Literally. Y'all be good.